Internet mythicists will still sometimes insist that the town of Nazareth didn't exist at the beginning of the 1st century CE, and they are wrong. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and in response to a previous video where I pointed out that many scholars think the historical Jesus was likely born in Nazareth rather than in Bethlehem, a number of folks confidently asserted in the comments that Nazareth didn't exist at the beginning of the 1st century CE, which suggests that the entire story of Jesus, including a historical Jesus, is all made up, that there was no historical Jesus. And this is a mythicist claim that goes back to the 19th century and is based on a couple of observations that were first made in that time period. One is the absence of any reference to Nazareth in any of the literary or inscriptional sources from the early 1st century CE, and that continues to be true. The other is the absence from the material record of domestic dwellings and habitations and cultural artifacts in the area we now know as Nazareth that date to the beginning of the 1st century CE. According to the mythicist position, Nazareth was founded around the 3rd quarter of the 1st century CE, so somewhere around the time of the Jewish War. And then later New Testament authors just erroneously assumed that the town existed at the beginning of the 1st century CE. That observation is no longer true, because archaeological excavations from the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century have turned up a number of domestic dwelling places, inhabitations, cultural artifacts that attest to the continued inhabitation of a Jewish village in the area that would later become Nazareth, going all the way back to the Hellenistic period. So there was a village at the location that would become Nazareth by the end of the 1st century CE, and that village had been inhabited continually for centuries prior to the birth of Jesus. So there are no longer good reasons to believe that Nazareth didn't exist at the beginning of the 1st century CE. In fact, if you go visit Nazareth today, you can see some of these remains under the Church of the Annunciation. Now, this was a very small village of maybe only 4 acres in area. So it wasn't a large city. It wasn't a prominent place. It was a small hamlet, but it did exist. It was inhabited by Jewish folks. And so the mythicist claim no longer holds any water. And if you do prioritize data over dogma, you should stop claiming that the town of Nazareth didn't exist at the beginning of the 1st century CE, because it did. And the fit for this video has been Dipper Pines.